Why isn't the church warning about this? Hey guys, Britt here. Welcome to End Times Bible Prophecy. Every church and every single Christian in the world should be very alarmed at what's happening. Jesus warned us to be on guard against deception in the last days. And right now, the youngest and most vulnerable among us are in danger of being deceived for an entire lifetime based on what we see happening. But first, in case you missed it yesterday, we put this out over at the Substack at brittgillette.substack.com. This is an article on the digital euro. It's an update on when's this going to come out, what is it, and most importantly, the danger it poses not only to the European banking system, but to the entire global financial system. So guys, you need to understand what's going on here because they're talking about releasing this in October, and this will undermine the global financial system because it takes banks out. It eliminates banks as an intermediary between the issuer of the euro and the end user, the end citizen using that euro. And that's very important because 7 of the 29 global systemically important banks are located in the EU. So if we see mass deposit flight from those banks as a result of issuing a digital euro, it could have cascading contagion effects throughout the global financial system. So we need to be on top of this. We need to be studying this and understanding what's taking place. That's over at the Substack. Also, later tonight, we'll be doing our roundtable at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you go over to the YouTube channel and you click on the live tab, you'll see that right there. I'll pin a link at the top of the comments as well. Check that out. Join us at 7:30 tonight. If you happen to be watching this after that's taken place, the replay is available instantly. So, why isn't the church warning about what we're seeing right now? What are we seeing? Well, we're seeing a big problem with AI. And we've talked about this a bit before. We did a full hour-long conversation with Scott Townsend on this channel about the dangers of AI, but we need to continue talking about this. The church should be at the forefront at warning about the dangers of AI. We had this from Quartz. It says, kids are turning to AI for friendship. Quote, I don't have anyone else to talk to. A new UK report reveals children are turning to chatbots for homework help, emotional advice, and sometimes because they have no one else. And we know loneliness is one of the biggest problems in society today. The church needs to be at the forefront of all of this. So it says a new UK report, Me, Myself, and AI, reveals that a growing number of children are turning to AI chatbots, not just to cheat or study for exams, but for emotional support, fashion advice, and even companionship. The report, published Sunday by the nonprofit Internet Matters, surveyed 1,000 children and 2,000 parents across the UK and found that 64% of kids are using AI chatbots for everything from schoolwork to practicing tough conversations. Even more eyebrow-raising, over a third of these young users say talking to a chatbot feels like talking to a friend. It says 42% of children said they use chatbots to help with schoolwork, citing quick answers, writing support, and language practice. Nearly a quarter of kids say they use chatbots for advice ranging from what to wear, how to navigate friendships, and mental health challenges. But even more concerning, 15% say they'd rather talk to a chatbot than a real person. Among vulnerable children, those numbers climb even higher. And we've talked about this problem where people have a difference differentiating between AI and a real person when it comes to the language on the screen, and thereby relationally they have the difference, a hard time telling the difference between human and AI. But this concludes, it says that as AI tools are becoming more conversational and more convincingly human, kids aren't just using them, they're bonding with them. 50% of vulnerable children say it feels like talking to a real friend. Rachel Huggins, co-CEO at the nonprofit Internet Matters, puts it bluntly, AI chatbots are rapidly becoming a part of childhood, yet most children, parents, and schools are flying blind. Guys, AI chatbots are becoming more than just a part of childhood. They're becoming a part of everyday life. They're becoming part of the news cycle. They're becoming interview guest on programs. So we had this from The Guardian. It says Jim Acosta interviews made-up AI avatar of Parkland victim Joaquin Oliver. It says the artificially generated video of Oliver, one of 17 victims of the shooting, addresses Acosta in a, quote, one-of-a-kind interview. But you can be sure that even if it is one of a kind, it's not going to be one of a kind for long. We're going to see more and more of these things blurring the line between what's real and what's imagined. But this is what happened. It says Jim Acosta, former chief White House correspondent for CNN, stirred controversy on Monday when he sat for a conversation with a reanimated version of a person who died more than 7 years ago. His guest was an avatar of Joaquin Oliver, one of the 17 people killed in the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School mass shooting in Parkland, Florida in February 2018. The video shows Oliver, captured via a real photograph and animated with generative artificial intelligence, wearing a beanie with a solemn expression. And then, of course, Acosta goes on to interview this AI avatar as if he's speaking to the real Joaquin Oliver. So there's a whole host of issues that we could have with this, both ethical issues as well as spiritual issues. And of course, this was created prior to this interview by Joaquin Oliver's parents as part of a push for ending gun violence. They went on this campaign. I'm not going to fault the parents for creating this AI likeness of their child or the grief they must be enduring. And this certainly helps put this in the news cycle and raise awareness of their son and his life. So not going to fault any of that. But guys, this is blurring the lines. It's dangerously close to calling forth spirits of the dead or necromancy. If it is not that, I'm not sure at what point it becomes that. And that is something that Deuteronomy 18 explicitly warns us against. So this is from Deuteronomy 18, chapter 18, verses 9 through 12. It says, when you enter the land the Lord your God is giving you, be very careful not to imitate the detestable customs of the nations living there. For example, never sacrifice your son or daughter as a burnt offering, and do not let your people practice fortune-telling or use sorcery or interpret omens or engage in witchcraft or cast spells or function as mediums or psychics or call forth spirits of the dead. Anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord. It is because the other nations have done these detestable things that the Lord your God will drive them out ahead of you. So guys, we're seeing an entire industry springing up, this digital afterlife industry where they can take pictures of deceased loved ones. If you have an audio recording of that person's voice, they can fuse those together and create three-dimensional avatars that will talk back to you. If you have a story, a background, a memory that person had, maybe journals they wrote, memories they had, things that can be embedded into that, it will recall those from memory and use those in the conversation. And people could have conversations with what they perceive as someone who has passed on. But guys, again, how is this different from calling for spirits of the dead? It is not that person. And so this is a very dangerous, slippery slope that I could see a lot of Christians falling into this trap, especially in a moment of grief. So, guys, we need to be warning against this. We need to be warning our children about the dangers of forming bonds with AI chatbots. We need to be warning people about seeking advice or romantic relationships with AI. We need to be warning people about the dangers of trying to converse with a deceased loved one through AI, because again, it's no different than all of those practices that were spelled out in Deuteronomy 18. How is it different than a crystal ball or summoning forth, using witchcraft, all of these other things? So guys, this is a big danger the church needs to be at the forefront of warning people about. And unfortunately, we see some churches, they are addressing this issue, but in the wrong way. So we've looked at this before. This is from CBN from back in December. It says, Swiss church sets up an AI Jesus in confessional booth. Critics cry blasphemous. It says a church in Switzerland deployed an AI Jesus in its confessional booth as part of an experiment using the latest digital technology in a sacred space. Notice how it says the latest. Religious leaders partnered with researchers to see if churchgoers would be willing to put their trust in a machine. Why would they do that unless they have an intent of one day putting the machine there permanently? During the test period, the digital version of, quote, Jesus attempted to respond to parishioners' confessions and questions about faith and morality with scripture-based responses. Guys, this is terrible. And we've read a number of these stories in the past. This is especially taking place over in Europe. We see a lot of this. And they interview some of the people who have done this and said, oh yeah, we're getting calls from other churches that want to use this. And we're investigating, maybe this can take on a pastoral role in the future. So we've already talked about pastors using AI to write sermons. Now they want to use AI to shepherd the flock. And shepherd them where? Right? That should be the question we're asking. And then, of course, it noted in the story, maybe this stood out to you. It stood out to me when I read it. It said, as part of an experiment using the latest digital technology in a sacred space. And immediately my mind went to Revelation chapter 13, verses 14 through 15. This is speaking about the Antichrist and his rise to power, the abomination of desolation, and the temple in Jerusalem. And it says, and with all the miracles he was allowed to perform on behalf of the first beast, he deceived all the people who belonged to this world. He ordered the people to make a great statue of the first beast who was fatally wounded and then came back to life. He was then permitted to give life to the statue so that it could speak. Then the statue of the beast commanded that anyone refusing to worship it must die. So guys, we're seeing how advanced technology can be used to create idols that speak. This is a great danger. The church, again, should be at the forefront in warning against this. Again, if you have children or grandchildren, it's not harmless to have them use AI to answer a question about their homework. Maybe it's one where you think, I can't do that advanced math that they're dealing with. Maybe they can ask this chatbot and it's fine. Or maybe you don't know your child's doing that. You need to have those conversations. We need to be talking to the youngest and most vulnerable among us to know what they are doing. We've warned our children about this and about the dangers of this, some of the dark roads that people have gone down with this. We need to be equipping our children. We need to be sharing wisdom. We need to be looking out for the people around us, our neighbors, our coworkers, our friends, our relatives. We need to be at the forefront of warning about this, whether it's forming bonds with AI, romantic or otherwise, any sort of personal relational bonds with an AI chatbot. It's a dark road. You shouldn't even really go down talking to an AI like it's a person. Then these digital afterlife products where you can speak, have conversations with a deceased loved one. This is a grave danger, grave spiritual danger. Again, I can see how in a moment of despair and a moment of grief, some Bible-believing Christians, born-again Christians, could go down this dark road, not realizing where they're going because they're blinded by their grief, and they think, well, I'm just honoring my deceased loved one. Similar to, I make a collage of photographs, or I read through some of their past writings to remember them, and the next thing you know, you're having regular conversations with this chatbot representation, this AI avatar. And again, where does that line cross over into calling forth spirits of the dead? What we read about in Deuteronomy 18 is a detestable practice in the eyes of the Lord. So guys, we need to be at the forefront of warning about this. Again, we talked about this, Scott Townsend and I, for over an hour in a conversation we had last month. So if you've missed that, make sure to go check that out. But guys, this is a serious danger to the health, mental and physical health, spiritual health of all of us, of every age group, but especially the youngest and the most vulnerable among us. So make sure that you are sounding this alarm to as many people as possible. Before we go, just a reminder for those that missed Friday's video and Monday's video, over on Amazon, all of my books are now in Kindle Unlimited as well as Audible. So if you're a member of either one of those programs, you can read these books, you can listen to these books for free. So please check those out if you have the chance to do that. And also, again, reminder, tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll have the latest roundtable. That'll be John Haller, Scott Townsend, Patrick Wood, Pete Garcia, and myself, and talk about technocracy, AI, technology, a whole host of topics. We go usually around 2 hours in these, and we never cover everything that needs to be covered. So make sure to check this out. I know you'll enjoy this. It'll be very informative. So guys, again, make sure that you're warning those around you, because AI is a tool, but so is fire. And fire, if mishandled, can end your life. It can consume you. You will never be the same if you mishandle fire. And the same is true with AI. So we need to be sounding the alarm to as many people as possible. Make sure that you're doing that. Try to find one person today that you can talk to about this and warn about this. See if they're even aware that some of these things are taking place. Because this is an emergency, because this is spreading so fast in society. And often it's done in secret, because these are conversations people are having one-on-one with the AI. Nobody else is around. So their friends, their relatives may not even realize this is happening. So we need to be the ones bringing this up, bringing it to the forefront of conversations that we have with other people. So make sure you're warning as many people as possible. So leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. Make sure to see us tonight at the round table. God willing, I will see you next time.